the Dismal Swamp. Its solitary regions a paradise for hunters. Runaway slaves formerly found refuge in its dark and lonely precincts while the hunters were unsuccessful. It is well known that the almost impenetrable thickets of the Dismal Swamp offered the greatest attractions imaginable for the sportsman. The swamp proper consists of about 120,000 acres of low and swamp land, through which the bears and deer wander unmolested. Birds of beautiful plumage fly from limb to limb of the huge cypress trees, and deadly rattlesnakes bask in the sunlight where fear of man. The surrounding swamp abounds in cypress and juniper trees, both of which are being very largely cut and conveyed consequently exceedingly valuable. In the very center of the Dismal Swamp Lake Drummond is situated, and a more lovely solitary sheet of water one would have to explore the wilds of Africa to find. The surface is almost the placid water sparkles in it supposed to have been made by a flash of lightning thousands of years ago. The whole swamp is flat, preventing its waters to escape from the bog, and hence its supply is drawn from an inflammable clay. A mass of light moss became the entire basin for the growth, and the flames eventually ate their way far into the inflammable soil until an enormous hollow existed, forming in the ground. Innumerable streams trickle through the low swamp, and when the rains overflowed their banks they ran into this basin, forming Lake Drummond. Such at least is the theory. The trackless swamp has not yet been entirely explored, and the surveyor's chain has never been stretched across more than one half of it. 300 square miles is one of the occasionally that parties of hunters enter its jungles to shoot the game which abounds in numbers in the glades. The parts of the swamp that have been cleared and drained are only on the edges of the woods or along the sides of the canal, which passes through the swamp. This canal is 23 miles long and 6 feet deep. The dismal place was never visited by persons other than the laborers and runaways. Just previous to the Civil War, the Dismal Swamp was the great refuge for the runaway slaves, and its gloomy wilds have sheltered more than one persecuted black. The bloodhounds were the only animals that could find the victims in the swamp, and often they returned to their masters weeks later, torn and bleeding from their journey in the swamp and likely to be unalived from the Maroons. The Buckra white men never ventured to follow the bloodhounds through the swamp, and it became a common saying that where a slave escaped to the Dismal Swamp, he was lost for good, and at one time quite a colony of runaway slaves lived in a swamp near Lake Drummond, where they led a half-savage existence. The wild beasts and birds furnished them with all the meat they needed, and by digging up a portion of the higher ground they succeeded in making dry homes. They raised considerable grain here and lived an apparently contented life. Long after the war, this little colony was visited accidentally by some hunters. The Negroes fled into the woods, leaving the white hunters in possession of their homes. It was only after considerable explanation that they could make the Negroes believe that a war had been fought for their freedom, and that the hunters were not white masters searching for their slaves. The Maroons had not been in communication with the outside world for years, and they were totally ignorant of the great agitation which had shaken the country. Their mound houses have long since been deserted, eroded away, and small companies of hunters occasionally camp out on the little piece of dry ground which these Maroons had erected and lived upon. Soon there will be no hunters allowed in the Dismal Swamp. This swamp belongs to the Nanseman tribe and the Dismal Maroon descendants. Their Maroon descendants still follow the old code, and they are spreaded throughout in the Virginia counties such as Skeeter Town, Gates County, Bertie County, Nansemond, and they are also living in Tennessee Henderson, including in Mississippi Winston County, Georgia, and some in St. Louis.